The college football playoff says it wants the 12 best teams, not the 12 nicest stores. Let's talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Nick Frazier, and welcome to Water Cooler Talk Sports, man. If this is your first time here around the water cooler, please like the video, share the video, hit the subscribe button. We are on our way to hitting 1,100 subscribers before the end of 2025, and we thank you so much. If this is your fourth, fifth, 600th, 50th, however many times, if you're a returning visitor, thank you so much for coming back. Please like the video, share the video, comment on the video. If you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. It helps us out, man. We appreciate you so much. Let's get into the conversation for tonight's video. College football playoff first round happened this past weekend, right? Happened this past weekend. And the way it happened, if you watch the games, you felt some type of way. You know, half of the games were really good games. Of course, the Alabama-Oklahoma game was a very competitive game. It was an entertaining game. The Ole Miss Tulane game, not that entertaining. The JMU Oregon game, not that entertaining. Texas A&M, Miami, entertaining if you like defensive slugfest. But the two games I mentioned before that last one that I mentioned, man, the JMU Oregon game and the Ole Miss Tulane games, is the reason why a lot of people have a problem with the rules of the college football playoff. You know, when Ole Miss beat Tulane earlier this year, beat them 45-10. They had the game this past weekend, beat them 41-10. JMU travels to Oregon, and at halftime, it was a 34-6 game. At halftime, ended up being a 51-34 game at the end of the game. Yes, JMU showed promise towards the end of the game. Yes, it looked like they were trying to make a comeback, but that was not a game at all, man. And this is why a lot of fans have a problem with the college football playoff. If you talk about getting the best teams in the playoff, then you have to get the best teams in the playoff, not the ones that are by rules going to be in the playoff. I did a video on this a couple of days ago, maybe a week or so ago, saying that I can fix the college football playoff. And the simple fix was not having the G5 in this particular version of the college football playoff, but allowing them to have their own playoff, allowing them to have their own version of the playoff, of their playoff on the G5 level. We talk about equality, man. Is what we talk about, but there has to be an equity question in this thing as well, too. What is equitable? You know, equality all the time. Equal. Yeah, we're gonna get the same amount, but what's equitable? What is equitable? Like, how are those matchups equitable for the college for college football fans? How? This is why I've been saying for the longest Notre Dame and Vanderbilt should have been in the playoff. Were these games competitive or were they just predictable? When you look at that JMU Oregon game, when you look at that Tulane Ole Miss games, were they predictable or were they competitive? Because leading up to the game, there were a lot of national talking heads, pundits, basically saying the same thing that everybody else was thinking. There's no chance that these teams win. And you saw it. You saw it happen on this past weekend, man. If the playoffs are about the 12 best teams, the quality of competition has to matter more than the win-loss records, in my opinion. There's this conversation of best versus deserving. I kind of want to navigate this a little bit. I want to give my own analogy and my own thought process on this best versus deserving. When you talk about most deserving, you're talking about teams that have the resume, teams that meet the qualification or the rules that have been laid out, and they have the record. So when you look at JMU, they had the resume because they were the Sun Belt champions. They beat they meet the rules or the criteria because they were one of the highest ranked conference champions. And then, of course, the record was there. You look at Tulane. Tulane beat the ACC champion in Duke. That's a different conversation, even though Duke was a 5-loss team. The rules, they were one of the highest ranked conference champions, and they had the record. But when we talk about best teams, we're talking about the talent of the team. We're talking about the weekly competition that team goes up against. We're talking about the depth of that team. And sometimes not even just depth, the quality of depth that team has. When you look at Vanderbilt played against Texas. Yes, they lost to Texas, but the manner in which they came back in that game and actually made that game a game, and where you actually thought if they recover an onside kick before going out of bounds, they could win this game. You look at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's 2 losses came to two of the playoff teams that played against each other this past weekend. They lost to Miami on a last-second field goal that was like a minute and some change left in the game. That's not last-second field goal, but like a game-winning field goal for Miami. They lost the game on that. Then they lose to Texas A&M on a really last-second touchdown on Texas A&M Park. And if you go back and watch the play, it was a holding on that play. If the flag is thrown, that touchdown doesn't count. But let's not talk about ifs. When you look at these two teams, everybody says the SEC is the best team. I mean, it's the best conference. Vanderbilt is in that conference. So basically, you're telling me that they're playing the best competition or the best quality of depth competition every week. Do they not deserve to be in? They were 10-2. They play Alabama. The score to the Alabama game for Vanderbilt is very deceiving. That was a tie ball game at halftime. Alabama kicked 3 field goals in the second half and had a garbage touchdown at the end of the game with 17 seconds left. That's what it was. Vanderbilt was the most consistent team all season long, in my opinion, offensively and defensively. Defense, it took about 3 weeks for them to get in groove, but that when they got in groove, you saw how that Notre Dame team played and how they looked. There should not have been a question, but because of the rules that are set out by the College Football Playoff Committee, you have 2 Group of 5 teams that get in over 2 of the best teams in college football. Which is why I made the argument that the Group of 5 needs their own playoff. The Group of 5 needs their own set of rules for the competition that they play. It's just my opinion. And I think a lot of people agree with that. Talk about equality. But most of the times it's about equity. It's about equity. And it's no knock to Tulane and JMU because they followed the rules, they met the criteria and everything. But following the rules doesn't automatically make you one of the 12 best teams. It just doesn't. We talk about fairness versus entertainment. All right. When we look at sports first is a business. That's the number one thing. First, it is a business. College football is a business. Okay. But then after that, it becomes entertainment. So when we look at the entertainment, the entertainment aspect of it, we have to balance. We have to show balance and we have to show credibility. Are we really sitting here saying that JMU and Tulane were more credible teams than Vanderbilt and Notre Dame were? I think the Group of 5 needs to be included, but included in a way where it's equitable to them. I'm going to continue to say that. But that automatic access doesn't equal competitive balance. There's a such thing as competitive balance. And we saw that with those 2 games that were played this past weekend with those 2 teams that we are speaking about, Tulane and JMU. I'm all about access, man. All about access. All about these teams having the ability to have the access to the playoff. They have the opportunity to play the playoffs, to play in the playoffs. But excellence and credibility should matter more. And having them have their own playoff and having them have their own version of the playoff on the G5 level would be a better game. You tell me, would you have rather seen JMU and Tulane play each other in a group of 5 national championship than seeing them play against Ole Miss and Oregon? And it goes back to the question I asked earlier. Were those games competitive or were those games predictable? I'm willing to bet that a JMU versus Tulane G5 national championship would have been more competitive and less predictable, because Ole Miss versus Tulane was very predictable because we saw it at the beginning of the season. JMU versus Oregon was very predictable because we knew the level of competition, the quality of depth that between the teams, especially in the trenches, was just different. I'm gonna close with this, man. Tulane and JMU deserved the access because of the rules that were in place. But Vanderbilt and Notre Dame were better teams. And I want y'all to think about this. Do you want the fairness or do you want the best football that comes with the college football playoff? Which one? That's the question. Equity or equality? The best teams don't always have the cleanest records, but they give you the best football. It's what they do. And I am more inclined to think that having Notre Dame and Vanderbilt in the playoff, Vanderbilt playing Ole Miss, or Vanderbilt playing Oregon, or Notre Dame playing Oregon, or Notre Dame playing Ole Miss, would have been more competitive games. Tell me in the comments what you think. We appreciate you so much for watching us, man. If you haven't, follow us on Twitter at CoolestPod23. Follow us on TikTok and Instagram at The Water Cooler Talk. And if you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button here on YouTube and help us go that way. 1,100 subscribers before the end of 2025. Help us get there, man. We appreciate you so much. As always, y'all have a good one. Y'all have a great one. Y'all be easy, man. Stay blessed.